James was a student at Boys High School in Owerri. During his time there, he joined a group of boys who identified as gay boy. They were homosexuals, and their behavior was encouraged by one of the teachers. As a result, James and the others in the group engaged in homosexual activities to satisfy their sexual urges. However, their actions were eventually exposed by the school principal. The consequences were severe. James and the other students involved were expelled from school. When James returned home to his wealthy mother, she was shocked and angry. His mother was heartbroken, crying bitterly as she asked James why he had joined such a group. She couldn't understand why her son would engage in behavior that led to his expulsion. James, however, showed no remorse. He told his mother that he enjoyed being part of the group and that it made him feel good. His mother was horrified, shouting at him about the many women he could have relationships with instead. She reminded him that even if he got someone pregnant, their wealth and status would ensure that they could handle any situation that arose. James, however, seemed indifferent to his mother's concerns, dismissing her words as mere ranting. James's mother, determined to help him change his ways, enrolled him in a new secondary school, a mixed institution with both boys and girls. However, James's behavior didn't change. He started trying to corrupt some of the male students, introducing them to his gay lifestyle, but James's plans were soon discovered by the school authorities. The principal, concerned about James's influence on the other students, called his mother into his office. The principal warned James's mother about his behavior, telling her that James was trying to recruit other male students into his gay lifestyle. James's mother was devastated, crying bitterly as she asked God why her son was like this. The principal consoled her, suggesting that the only solution to James's problem was to introduce him to a female influence, someone who could seduce him and make him feel like a real man. Combined with prayers, this could help James change his ways. James's mother thanked the principal and took his advice to heart. When she got home, she called James into her bedroom and gave him a stern warning. She told him that if he continued his gay lifestyle, he would end up alone, without children, and shunned by society. James, however, was unrepentant. He told his mother that he was addicted to his lifestyle and couldn't stop. His mother was shocked and ashamed, covering her mouth in horror. She asked James where he had learned such behavior, pointing out that his father had not been a gay man before he died. James simply shrugged, saying that it was God who had given him his homosexual tendencies. With that, James walked out of the room, leaving his mother heartbroken and crying uncontrollably. She was at a loss for what to do, unsure of how to save her son from himself. James's mother was heartbroken, but she refused to give up on her son. She spent every waking moment praying and crying to God, begging him to change James's ways. Please, God, she prayed, if it's possible, make James a womanizer. Just please take away this homosexual spirit that's consuming him. She prayed day and night, asking God to forgive her if she had done anything to offend him. I've never seen anyone in my family or my husband's family who's homosexual, she cried. Why did my son have to go to an all-boys school and come back with this affliction? She prayed for God to deliver her son, to set him free from the bondage of homosexuality. As she prayed, James's mother felt a sense of hope that she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew that God was powerful, that he could change James's heart and mind. She held on to that hope, praying fervently for her son's transformation. Years later, James graduated from secondary and university level. His mother was overjoyed when he graduated from university and returned home. However, her happiness was short-lived, as she soon realized that James was still actively engaged in his homosexual lifestyle. One day, she called him into her sitting room, her voice trembling with emotion. "James, are you still doing that?" she asked, her eyes welling up with tears. James smiled wryly and nodded. "Mother, I've told you before. This is who I am. I'm not going to change." His mother broke down in tears, begging him to reconsider. "Why are you doing this to me, James? I want grandchildren. I want to see you happy with a wife and children." James sighed, his expression sympathetic but firm. "Mother, I understand what you want. But this is my life, and I'm not going to change it to suit your expectations. If you want grandchildren, we can adopt." His mother wept bitterly, her body shaking with sobs. James tried to comfort her, but she pushed him away. "You're killing me, James. You're breaking my heart." As the days passed, James's mother grew weaker, her health declining rapidly. James was worried, but he didn't know how to reach his mother, how to make her understand that he was happy with his life. James's mother had been struggling with her health for a while, but one day, her condition took a dramatic turn for the worse. James was alarmed and rushed her to the hospital. After a thorough examination, the doctor called James into his office and explained that his mother was suffering from high blood pressure, caused by overthinking and stress. James was concerned and assured the doctor that he would do everything in his power to reduce his mother's stress levels. When he returned to his mother's bedside, she asked him what the doctor had said. James calmly explained the doctor's diagnosis, but his mother's reaction was unexpected. She burst into tears, wailing that James's homosexual lifestyle was killing her. She begged James to marry and have children, just like her own parents had done. She longed to hold her own grandchild in her arms before she passed away. James was taken aback by his mother's emotional outburst, but he couldn't bear to see her so distraught. He promised her that if she recovered fully, he would get married. His mother's tears stopped, and she was overjoyed. She hugged James tightly, thanking him for agreeing to give her a grandchild and for promising to leave his homosexual lifestyle behind. With renewed hope, James's mother began to recover, and soon they were both discharged from the hospital. They returned home, filled with joy and anticipation for the future. Weeks later, James reminded his mother of his promise to get married. However, he confessed that he wasn't used to chasing women and asked his mother to find him a suitable partner. His mother gladly accepted the task, saying she knew many beautiful girls who would make perfect wives. Soon, she introduced James to a lovely young lady named Rita. Rita and James started dating, and their relationship blossomed over the next 2 months. Before long, their wedding date was set, and they got married in a beautiful ceremony. 9 months after their wedding, Rita gave birth to a handsome baby boy named Tyler James. The new parents were overjoyed, and James's mother was over the moon, finally holding her grandchild in her arms. She was grateful to God for changing her son's life, transforming him from a homosexual to a happily married man. The family celebrated the arrival of baby Tyler, and their home was filled with joy and laughter. Years later, James's mother's health took another dramatic turn. 6 years had passed since James's wedding, and his mother had grown old and frail. One day, she fell ill, and James and his wife, Rita, rushed her to the hospital. Despite the doctors' and nurses' best efforts, James's mother's condition deteriorated rapidly. She passed away, leaving James and Rita heartbroken. The mourning period was difficult for both James and Rita. Rita, in particular, was deeply affected by the loss of her mother-in-law, who had become like a mother to her. She missed her dearly, remembering her kindness, support, and guidance. James tried to comfort Rita, but he too was struggling to come to terms with the loss of his mother. As the days turned into weeks, they both began to heal, but the pain of their loss still lingered. As they slowly returned to their routine, a subtle change crept into their relationship. James started to distance himself from Rita, spending more time alone with their son, Tyler. He loved being with Tyler, playing with him, and secretly began to lure him into his old homosexual lifestyle. Rita noticed the change but couldn't quite put her finger on what was happening. She felt a growing sense of unease, wondering if James was pulling away from her. She tried to brush off the feeling, but it lingered, making her question the state of their marriage. James's habit of spending time alone with Tyler became more frequent. He would take Tyler to the bedroom, hug with him, and have fun together. Tyler, being a little boy, doesn't understand what his father was doing. One day, Rita called James into their bedroom, looking concerned. "James, can I ask you something?" she said, her voice laced with emotion. "What is it?" James replied, slightly irritated, "Why do you always spend time with Tyler alone? Sometimes, you don't even let me join in." "It feels like you're pushing me away," Rita said, her eyes welling up with tears. James shrugged. "There's nothing wrong with me spending time with my son, is there?" Rita sighed. "No, of course not. But I miss you, James. I miss my husband. It's been 6 years since Tyler was born, and we should be thinking about having another child. But instead, you're always with Tyler, and I feel like I'm losing you." James's expression turned cold. "I don't think that's a good idea right now, Rita. I'm busy with other things. Let's just focus on our daily lives and not worry about making another baby. We can just save that conversation for another time. After all, my son gives me more pleasure than you," he said, and walked away. Rita felt a pang of sadness and rejection. She realized that James was drifting away from her, and she didn't know how to stop it. She wiped away her tears and nodded, trying to keep the conversation light, but the tension between them was palpable. As James and Tyler spent more time together in the bedroom, a disturbing pattern emerged. James would often tell Tyler not to tell his mother about their activities, saying it was their little secret. Tyler, being a young boy, didn't fully understand the implications of this, but he felt a deep sense of unease. Despite his discomfort, Tyler tried to brush it off, thinking that maybe his father just wanted to spend quality time with him. But as the days went by, Tyler began to notice that his father's behavior was becoming increasingly strange. James would often ignore Tyler's cries of pain, telling him to be quiet and not to tell his mother. Tyler's manhood and anus would ache. But James just kept telling him that it was their special game, meant only for men. Tyler's confusion and fear grew, but he felt trapped, unable to speak out against his father's actions. He began to wonder why his mother was never allowed to join them, why his father insisted on keeping their activities a secret. As James and Tyler continued their secret games in the bedroom, Rita grew increasingly suspicious. She couldn't understand why James would leave their bed at midnight to go to Tyler's bedroom, or why Tyler would scream with delight whenever he is with his father. Rita's curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to confront Tyler. One day, she asked him, "Tyler, what does your father do with you in the bedroom?" Tyler looked nervous, and Rita could see the fear in his eyes. "There's nothing, Mommy," he said, his voice trembling. "It's just our little secret." Rita's heart sank. She knew that something was wrong, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She tried to reassure Tyler that he could trust her with any secret. But Tyler refused to budge. As the days went by, Rita's suspicions grew. She began to notice that Tyler would flinch whenever James touched him, and that he would become withdrawn and quiet after spending time with his father. Rita's instincts were screaming at her that something was terribly wrong, but she didn't know what to do. She felt trapped and helpless, unsure of how to protect her son from the man she thought she knew. Tyler's behavior became more and more disturbing as time went on. In the sitting room, he would touch his father's manhood and put his mouth on his lips, kissing him, just the way they normally do in the bedroom. His mother would sometimes shout at him, but James tells Rita to leave him alone, saying he was just playing. Rita, however, was never comfortable with this behavior. She would call Tyler over and scold him, telling him not to do it again or she would punish him. But Tyler would just say, "Mommy, Daddy loves it when I do it." Rita was confused and worried. How could James possibly condone this behavior? She tried to talk to James about it, but he just brushed it off, saying Tyler was just being a child. As Tyler's behavior continued, it started to affect his relationships at school. His teacher noticed that he would touch his male friends inappropriately and make suggestive comments. When she tried to talk to him about it, Tyler would just say that he loved doing it with his father and that it was their little secret. The teacher was alarmed and decided to visit his parents at home to discuss Tyler's behavior.